The story today comes from KSTP.com. A Minnesota corrections officer involved in a profane confrontation with protesters who sought more serious charges in the Daunte Wright's death is no longer employed by the department.
Officer Paul Gorder, a 30-year veteran with the Minnesota Department of Corrections, is under fire after this encounter he and his wife had with protesters Sunday in their Stillwater neighborhood.
We were peaceful. We were having church.
Kimberly Handy Jones was one of several community activists who organized the prayer protest outside the home of Washington County Attorney Pete Orput. They were calling for more charges against former Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter in the Daunte Wright case.
The hatred, the racism, the police brutality, it's taken off like wildfire.
For Jones, it's an exhausting task fighting to hold the powerful accountable, but she has no plans of letting up anytime soon.
Just wasn't something that he thought of, nor his wife. Just yesterday, this is really who they are.
The Minnesota Department of Corrections stated on Wednesday that the Office of Professional Accountability has completed its investigation into the complaints against former Minnesota Corrections Facility Stillwater Sergeant Paul Gorder and opted to part ways with Gorder due to his actions.
All unfolding at a time when many law enforcement agencies across the country
we're asking people to trust us,
are trying to get it right when it comes to policing all communities, but especially communities of color.
certainly not the kind of behavior I expect on or off duty. Does not matter to me. It's not reflective of our agency, our values, and utterly unacceptable.
The Department of Corrections said on Wednesday, under the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act, the investigation and any discipline or data documenting the action is not public until it's final. Final disposition for union employees is at the conclusion of an arbitration proceeding sustaining discipline. Gorder and a woman were seen last month on social media shouting at protesters who gathered Sunday outside the home of Washington County Attorney Pete Orput. Nakima Levi Armstrong, an activist who has helped organize protests at Orput's home, posted a 39-second video on Twitter that appeared to show Gorder giving protesters the finger. A woman with Gorder is heard in the video using a racial slur as she tells protesters to get out of here.
Jones says Gorder and his wife were getting into a car when the racial slurs began, and that's when Jones's 16-year-old son started recording, capturing Gorder threatening them. Another clip catches his wife saying the N-word.
Oh, you f***ing m***ers, get out of here!
Wow. The first thing that came to my mind was wow. That's what you feel about us.
The woman later identified as Gorder's wife, Kimberly Beer. She was fired from her salon job shortly after the video went viral. Department of Correction Commissioner Paul Schnell issued the following statement regarding Gorder's firing. The Department of Corrections is an agency with more than 4,300 employees whose skills and commitment make Minnesota safer, and I am very proud of the work being done by our staff. That said, when concerns about the conduct of an agency staff member arise, I am compelled to act in a manner that ensures public trust, while ensuring that the employee is afforded all rights and protections guaranteed by law and their union's collective bargaining agreement. But you know, here's another one where if he was off duty, I don't know, could the union get him his job back? He's off duty. You know, if he's not in uniform, is what you do in your off time okay? I would think so. Because you're not at work at that point. You've got a separate life, so to speak. What about free speech? He's not afforded free speech? These are questions that you guys can answer in the comment section below. But here's another one where a corrections officer got into it with some protesters and was terminated. You know, it also goes back to always film interactions with law enforcement. Always get your interactions with law enforcement on video. Always. Because I'm going to tell you what, when a law enforcement officer decides to be a bully, a tyrant, a civil rights breaker, an oath breaker, or a criminal, they're not going to tell the truth. They're going to lie their ass off to make you look bad. And all these law enforcement officers say, well, you record the police to make them look bad. How do I make you look bad? All I'm doing is documenting the situation. If you want to act up in front of a camera, that's your fault. I'm not your daddy. You're over 21 years old. You make your own choices. People say, well, you're baiting us. Okay, if a fisherman puts a worm on a hook and goes zzz, and the fish grabs that worm, is it the fisherman's fault or the fish's fault? Answer me that. Community Leo Watch, watching Leos. That's law enforcement officers to include corrections officers in Minnesota and from coast to coast.